Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. It is our pleasure to have you. I want to thank everyone who's here today, our president, our distinguished guests, administrators, faculty, and staff, and students. My name is Maria Cano, and I am one of the moderators today. The second moderator is Dean Ana Garcia Reyes, Dean of Public Relations, a woman who's always active in the community. I cannot keep up with all of the activities. She's always up and about representing Hostos. Today, we're not only celebrating Women's History Month, we are celebrating International Women's History Month. The title of this event is Leading Through Challenging Times. Please note that this event is being recorded. Today, we will have a panel discussion presented by a group of Trailblazer, dynamic, empowering role models, women elected officials. Yes, women elected officials who will speak about the topic. But before we do that, I want to invite the president of our institution, President Daisy Cocco de Filippis, to bring greetings to the audience. Our president can really relate to the title of this presentation, since as many of you know, the president started her presidency at Hostos Community College amidst the COVID pandemic, and she kept the institution moving forward under such obscure and challenging times. Without further ado, I bring to you the president of our college, Dr. Daisy Cocco de Filippis.
Bueno, muy buenos días. So great to have everyone here, and greetings from all of us at Eugenio Maria de Hostos Community College. Women's History Month affords us the opportunity to celebrate, note, and commemorate the contributions made by women throughout history. It provides us with a chance to correct the official record, which so often diminishes or entirely deletes women's accomplishments. It also allows us to assess where we are and where we are going. A good part of my work as a faculty member was about recovering those women's voices in the Dominican literature, and also making sure to record the women's voices of the diaspora in the Caribbean. So in that sense, I understand the need to revisit history again and again, lest folks forget. Without a doubt, these are challenging times, and the global pandemic has only complicated matters. This is why today's event is so welcome. Our distinguished guests will draw upon their experiences as women leaders and share their thoughts on how they navigate the demands of the personal and the political in a world of great unrest and greater potential. We are honored to have with us today, joining us at different moments as they can, New York State Assembly members Amanda Septimo, Karines Reyes, and Chantel Jackson. When we have Assembly member Chantel Jackson already with us, so beautiful to see. And New York City Council members Jennifer Gutiérrez, Pierina Sanchez, and Gail Brewer. Our own Dr. Evenlyn Fernandez-Ketcham, Vice President for Continuing Education and Workforce Development at Hostos. Let me just say how much I appreciate the work that Ana García does in the community, reaching out and bringing voices together. So very important. I was at an event last evening, Ana, so I'm going to throw this one on you as well, where the ambassador of the Dominican Republic in Washington was being honored. I was being honored by Congressman Bauman. And I did say to her, when I found out that the ambassador is the first woman ever ambassador to the United States. So I said, you need to join a velada, because we do have about 60% of our students are female, and they need to see trailblazers like you. She said she would. So when we hear this, it will be yours to do, Ana, as well. Okay. And thank you so much to Maria Cano for joining. I so admire the work that Maria has been doing.
Fabulous. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And of course, our newly minted Ph.D., Evenlyn Fernández-Ketcham. So wonderful to see what a role model she is for all women, raising her family, working full time, and getting a Ph.D. in social work from Yeshiva University. So you know that there's business tied to the heart. You know, somehow she has to navigate that part. So everybody, thank you for being here. I look forward to hearing you all. Mil gracias.
Thank you. Thank you, President Cocco de Filippis, for your incredible and remarkable remarks that you gave us and insightful information about Women's History Month. Thank you so much. And now, Dinana García Reyes will introduce the amazing and fantastic panelists that we cannot wait to hear their information that they're going to share with us. Dean García Reyes.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome, ladies. Today is going to be warm because all of you are part of this panel. Although it's cold outside, women are always leading. So thank you for joining us. So as Maria mentioned, in honor of Women's History Month, the Office of the President welcomes everyone, including you specifically, the legislators. Thank you. Thank you for joining us to today's roundtable discussion, which is the title is Women Leaders Leading, right? Through challenging times. They're always challenging times. And during this pandemic, it has been incredible. I want to give a special shout out to our president, who has been a tremendous leader, who came in the middle, at the beginning, actually, of this pandemic, and she has kept this institution moving forward. We're very proud of the work you do, President. So thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and for being with us always and for always saying presente. To start today's panel, I would like to start by introducing our distinguished Assembly member from the 79th District, Chantel Jackson. Welcome.
Good morning and welcome. Happy Women's Month. Happy Social Work Month. Congratulations. We just got through our Dominican Heritage Day. I think that's what we titled it, and Black History Month. So we have a lot to celebrate. So congratulations to all of us. And I'm really excited today to be here with you all as I normally am. I love discussing women issues. I love being around women. I really love social workers as a licensed social worker myself. And the title, Women Leaders Through Challenging Times. I thought about that and it made me realize how much of my life was a challenge from beginning to now. And I wonder, like, how much did I cause and how much does environment play a part in it? It makes me really, really think about this because my mom came to this country as an immigrant from Belize, single mom, raised 4 children. And when I was 17, I became pregnant with my daughter. And her father was then incarcerated for 4 years while I was still in school, while I worked 3 jobs, while I made sure I did enough to take care of my daughter. And while that was a challenge, I thought like maybe that was the hardest part of my life, but it really wasn't, because then I decided that I want to go get my advanced degree and become a social worker, which was extremely hard to do when you are raising a family and you have a full-time job. Right. So we have the challenge of growing up in Harlem, being poor, being born of an immigrant parent, then becoming a teen mom at 17, and then deciding to further my career or further my studies to become a licensed social worker while raising my family, while still working full time. And then I thought something crazy. Why don't I run for office? And it's like, well, Chantel, like, how much torture do you possibly need in your life? But the truth is that it was absolutely necessary. Albany needs me. Albany needs all women. Albany needs more social workers. The reason why I'm saying it needs me is because at the time women were not the majority, and they probably aren't now the majority in the assembly. So think about when we're talking about women's rights and women's health, who are making those decisions? Those are men making those decisions. When we were talking about social services, and there's no one that ever worked in a social service and dealt with people in that capacity are making those decisions. So they don't understand what it means to be on food stamps. They don't understand what it means to need Medicaid. And I come from that world. So I tell you, they needed me and they need more of me. It can't just be me in that room fighting for the needs of women. So that's why I always am encouraging people. If you think that you want to run, run. If you need the support, for some reason, there's this talk that women don't support each other. But my biggest supporters have always been women and always been women of color. So I thank you all for being here and having this really important conversation. Thank you for taking up space in this world. Thank you for being the first, because that is not easy. Maybe the first in your family or the first in your career path. Thank you. Maybe being the first president. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because we have to continue to do this for my daughter, for your daughters, for the daughters that are coming behind us, so that they don't have to be the first, so they can sit amongst people that look like them, right? So in this moment, Chantel Jackson, the daughter of an immigrant from Belize, the teen mom, the elected official, says thank you, and let's continue to make life easier for women.
Thank you, Chantel. That was wonderful. Thank you, Assemblywoman. Many of the women that we know, they go through similar challenges and they make it. In Spanish, we say, sí se puede. Okay. Our next panelist is the Honorable Jennifer Gutiérrez. She's a council member from the 34th Councilmember District. Welcome.
Hi, buenos dias. Thank you.
Buenos dias.
Thank you so much for inviting me, for having me, and having this really important conversation at the beginning of Women's History Month. I think similar to the Assemblywoman, I think I've always felt supported by women, and specifically women of color. And so I love these roundtables and these spaces because it's not foreign to me. And I also see how successful we can be when we do uplift one another. Similar to the Assemblywoman, I'm a daughter of immigrants. My parents came here in the 80s from Colombia, raised my sister and I, went to public schools, grew up in a 1-bedroom apartment. I think yeah, look at you. Wait, everyone's like, yep. And those are our stories, right? And the important thing is that I think what's changing now is that those were always our stories, but we never really got to tell them. We never got to create spaces for them. And so part of the reason why I even decided to run was because I said, someone's got to tell like these stories for us, for women, for my mom, who was a domestic worker. My mom cleaned apartments for 25 years off the books and raised us off of that. My first experience advocating was interpreting for her. And I think that that's the story of a lot of New Yorkers, I'm sure a lot of your students, where they were advocating at 10 years old, probably not knowing that they were advocating, right? Filling out their food stamp applications, filling out their disability forms. Like those were all those are all things that I did. And looking at it now, I said it was such a gift because it really ingrained something in me that was far greater than I could have really understood, which was service to my community, service to women, serving to working parents. And now I'm a first-time mom. I'm actually nursing my baby right now. She's 3 months. And thank you. I decided to run because I was really supported by women in my community, the women that were leading all the mutual aid efforts, that were doing all the food distribution, that were basically keeping our communities going and alive throughout the pandemic, really encouraged me to take the leap of faith. I think like a lot of sometimes working women. I'm also my mom's caregiver. I just didn't think that there was an opportunity for me to run. I was like, I have to prioritize family. And it's a challenge, but I still continue to prioritize family. And I've just made my community my extended family. So I prioritize the whole district now. And it's difficult, but I think when as women, we take this leap and run for office, we start to elevate the issues that are important to us. So in my district office, we're talking about childcare for all my other staff members that are working mothers, right? We're talking about how can we support after school programs in a meaningful way? How can we fund them? And I think that those are the unique experiences that we have as women, a lot of times as women of color who are the caregivers for everyone around us. And that's important because that's when we can achieve budget justice and policies that we can be proud of. And so I'm really, really proud to share this space. I'm personal fans of Amanda and Chantel here. I watch Amanda's lives all the time. So thank you for letting this girl from Brooklyn and Queens come out and show love to the Hostos family in the BX. There's a lot of love. And thank you so much. I'll be here.
Thank you very much. When you mentioned women helping parents, it reminded me of myself doing that a couple of years ago with my mom, not only with my mom, with the neighbors and with the sisters. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course, thank you.
And you mentioned that you follow Assemblymember Septimo and Assemblymember Chantel. And following that, we have her here. We have our distinguished Assemblymember Amanda Septimo. Amanda, thank you. Thank you for joining us. The floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It is always my favorite part of my day to be in Hostos space, feeling the love of the community. Hostos, I say it every time, Hostos is so emblematic of all of the excellence that we have in the South Bronx because you create so much of it. And it is always nice to be here. So thank you again for having me. And Women's History Month. I mean, Women's History Month is always such an exciting time because I think it allows us to kind of pause and reflect on all of the ways women have made history, right? And continue to make history. But for me, I think it's a really incredible moment to stop and think of the ways that women just bring magic to spaces simply by existing. That is something that I have felt a lot in my first year in elected office. I'm kind of starting my second year now. In this first year, I can't tell you how many times I have heard, well, that's not how we've really done things over the years, or that's not how it's typically done. And I remind people that when you are existing somewhere and deciding to do something in a new way, you are literally redefining what it means to be in that position. And I've had that experience over and over as an assembly member, but really that's the experience that women have every single day, going into spaces and redefining how they work just because of our really unique set of experiences and perspectives. And, I think there's probably something to be said about the unique set of pressures and expectations that fall on women as well. But all of those things come together to, I think, make this really beautiful experience that ultimately raises the floor for everyone. And that's the really incredible thing about women, that to be in community with women means that you are in community everywhere you go. And I think that is obviously very clear here at Hostos with the strong leadership that you have from so many incredible women, all the way from the president and throughout the administration, but also to the students who show up every day, right? And who are providers and leading their families and leading their communities every single day. And I think that, when we talk about community, I think it has, at least for me, it means this kind of broader sense. Like the councilwoman was just saying, everyone in her district is part of her community and part of her extended family. And we certainly see that leadership from women across the city and across New York, and especially in the South Bronx. But my favorite kind of leadership that I see from women is everyday leadership. That's making sure that your family is cared for on a daily. That's making sure that the person who needs help carrying their stroller up the stairs in the subway gets the help. Even though there are 50 strong men who walk past her, it's always a woman who decides to help, right? It's those small ways of stepping into leadership and showing solidarity and building community every day that make me especially proud to pause and reflect and celebrate during Women's History Month, because we know that this work happens every day. And we'll get to a place where this work gets celebrated in a big way every day. But for now, it is always a pleasure to pause during Women's History Month and acknowledge it. And so thank you all again for having me here, for giving me the space to kind of pause, reflect, celebrate, and for being able to do it with you all, because there are certainly women all across Hostos making history every day, in big ways and small, and I'm grateful for every single one of them. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for always supporting Hostos and the students. We have students from all your districts, so we really, really appreciate your taking time from your busy schedules to be with us. And especially, we want to thank you for supporting the students. They really need leaders like you. I am going to pass now the mic to Maria Cano, who will be introducing our dear Vice President of Continuing Education and Workforce Development, Dr. Evenlyn Fernández-Ketcham. Maria.
Thank you. And now I am proud to pass the second portion of this event to our newly minted Vice President for Continuing Education and Workforce Development, Dr. So happy to say that a lot of work went into that, Dr. Evenlyn Fernández-Ketcham, who will give remarks about the speaker's presentation. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you so much for your kind words. And I am humbled to be here right now in this space, this moment in time. I am a second generation Dominican. I identify Dominican American. My parents too migrated here to this country. And I come from a line of women. So my family is very matriarchal, powerful women. So, we have madrinas in my family. So I stand on amazing shoulders, and I take no credit for everything that I'm still able to do, because I have all of those women behind me, and by my side, in front of me, above me, and making sure that they're minding. This morning, I want to share with you that I had a staff meeting with our division, Continuing Education and Workforce Development. I call it the CWD convening that welcomes all staff, right? It's not any leadership meeting or anything like that. And we thought it was appropriate to open up our meeting and kick off with Hostos trivia questions for our staff. And we're doing this as a way to make sure that our staff understand the mission and vision of Hostos Community College and the purpose and why we do what we do. But also it was very fitting because Eugenio Maria de Hostos was ahead of his time as a supporter of women in many ways, and particularly education. So I thought it was, it covers all areas, right? And, some of you may know it or not, but he was a great supporter of women's education. I want to point out that it's a great honor to be here. Our very own president, Cocco de Filippis, is the first Dominican president of our college. Very fitting again. So, it's amazing. And I feel very comforted and at home with many of you here, because the common thread is that we're either immigrants or children of immigrants, and we're women. I myself also, I remember when I was in School of Social Work and our Assemblyman, Jackson is gone, my fellow social worker. It was, my children were really small. And I remember giving birth to my third child and then going back to school and finishing my finals. But again, our former Hillary Clinton had, coined the term, or Africans had coined the term, it takes a village, it does take a village. I didn't do it by myself. I had a lot of support. In our community, the global pandemic, and many of you mentioned that, has amplified the issues in New York City neighborhoods, and in particular in the South Bronx, where we exist, and the nearing neighborhoods that we work with, whether it's across the bridge on 145th Harlem, whether it be Washington Heights, whether it be, believe it or not, Brooklyn. Our train can get you to Brooklyn. Councilwoman Gutiérrez, we're on the other side. So welcome and thank you for being here. The systemic issues are further compounded in our community. So we were already dealing with many of the things that are being, that are sort of amplified and pronounced, and that's sort of in our faces now. So we want to thank everybody that's here and that supports Eugenia Maria de Hostos Community College. And the systemic issues are challenging our students' ability to be able to balance life, work, and school. Because our students we're doing that already even before the pandemic. And so we need to continue to work together to make sure that we figure out, as an institution, how do we systemically work together to build and strengthen our institutions so that our students are getting all the supports that they really need, not just to succeed in the 21st century, but also beyond the 21st century, which is being challenged not just by the global pandemic, but also by technology. The technological revolution was already happening, and it sort of didn't ask for permission or ask, may I look at us? We're having a conference. Our daily lives is in front of the computer. This is the way of life now. So we do have to figure out how to we increase broadband internet connectivity. How do we make sure that our students have, technological devices that allows them to successfully complete training programs and classes? Without that, they can't do it. Not sharing it with their child and make arrangements to figure out when is my child not using his or her computer so that they can have their own. Making sure that if they do have to attend in-person classes, that they are provided with Metro cards, not just, special programs, but how do we get all students Metro cards? Not a daily one, not a weekly one, a monthly one that gives an incentive that they could use it on weekends too, and with their families to bring them back for our cultural activities that we have going on in our schools, because we have, cultural events going on all the time. So I think the common thread here, is that we're all women, and women lead not just with their heart, but with their minds as well. And I would just want to open it up now for any last or any other comments or thoughts.
Thank you very much, Vice President Fernandez. We are waiting also for a council member, Pierina Sanchez, but while she logs in, I want to take the privilege as being the moderator of asking the first question to Councilmember Gutiérrez. The question for you is, what advice would you give a student who is managing schoolwork, family, and all those other challenges that come on the way if he or she would like to become an elected official? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, thank you. That's such a great question. And I think, God, that's so many people's stories. And for women specifically, oftentimes those circumstances are the reasons why they feel like they can't run, why they feel like they can't campaign, they feel like they can't carve out time to fundraise, because that's an important piece. My advice would be to consider it, right? I think one of the things that kind of encouraged me while I was running and pregnant with morning sickness was that I wasn't the first woman to do it, right? There were women before me, like Diana Reina, like Zapraticha, that had ran and were pregnant and were raising families, and leaning on the women around me. I mentioned before, my mom cleaned apartments growing up, and I said, how did my mom do it? She cleaned 2 or 3 apartments a day and would come home and make sure that we were fed, and of course make sure my father was, like, it was, I think we historically kind of are conditioned to overwork and overexert ourselves. And, you know, I definitely want to be a part of that change so that we're creating space and opportunities so that we're not, you know, overworking ourselves. But I knew that running for office was something that I had to do. So just always remember your motivation. I think it's going to be hard, but that story, that experience that you have as a student, as a working and wanting to run for office as your parents' caretaker, my God, that story is going to take you so far, because think of how knowledgeable you'll be at the floor in Albany or City Hall or Washington when you can pull from those experiences. You are representing your constituency in the most informed way when you can sit there and talk about your experience working retail while trying to go to college and get your degree while running for office. That's something that the white men in office right now cannot speak to. And let that be your motivation, that what you're doing is not just for you right now, that it is for your community and it is going to benefit them in the long run. And so I know I started saying, like, don't overwork yourself. Campaigning, you will overwork yourself, but let that motivate you, because you are creating a space and a voice that didn't exist. And that's history. And that's so valuable.
Thank you. Thank you. A follow-up question that I have here. Do you think that there has been progress in terms of equity in the workplace for women, equity and inclusion? You think there has been progress?
I think there has been progress, but I also am very careful to characterize it progress versus like tokenism, right? So if you go to some of these spaces and they're like, well, we've got the one Latina, it's like, nah, that's not what we meant when we were talking about diversity and opportunities, right? We're talking about, yes, creating these like opportunities for them to be CEOs and in leadership and pay parity, of course, but we're also talking about pathways, right? I would never want to be the first and last of anything. And I think that is really that's really where the conversation has to evolve, that, you know, we have women in some of these spaces, are they getting paid the same? I think that there's like, I don't think we can just settle with kind of these like tokenized leadership positions or titles that are great for a conversation. And I think they're important and I wouldn't discredit anyone, but I think the next era of conversation is like, what are the pathways we're creating so that it's not just the one kind of holding it down for an entire industry or a community, because that is exhausting. And I don't think that is the movement that I think we want to leave for our descendants, right? So I think there is progress, but I think there's a lot more work to be done.
Thank you.
I have one question for you, and I'm sorry you're getting bombarded right now.
No. Oh, Pierina's here, so we're gonna share it. No worries.
We're gonna get to Pierina, to Councilwoman Perez, to Sanchez. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You just mentioned that you have a little one. How do you manage it?
She's right here.
And I see. How do you manage it? You know, I have actually two questions, right? Two in one. How do you manage it right now? Self-care, right? With a baby, multitasking, all this, going to all of, you know, taking care of yourself, your family, and all of your duties. And also being young, being in male-dominated, you know, position, and still showing that I belong here, although I look young, right? Because I know it's male discrimination, right? Also discrimination because you're in a male-dominated, you know, position, but also because you look young. So how do you manage all that?
I don't think that I am. And I think it's okay to like say that, and it's okay to be vulnerable and say like, I am not handling it. I'm trying to balance it. You know, I luckily I live with my partner, with my husband, who I think is very helpful, and my mom as well, who lives with us, and she tries to be as helpful as possible. But it's not like I never like ready to go to bed at the end of the day and be like, wow, that was a perfect day, well balanced. My mental and spiritual and physical health is done. I have fed my baby. No, it's like, all right, well, today I had 10 minutes to myself and I feel really good about that. And, you know, it's really just giving yourself grace, because my God, like, you're like, for me, I feel like I'm like, no one has ever done this in my family. I'm doing the best that I can do. And sometimes, you know, I beat myself up. Sometimes I wish I could be more present. And that's why like the childcare component is so important to not just me, but I know Pierina as well. So many women at the council, like I think it's great that there are dads at the council, but you cannot compare that. You cannot compare caretaking to that of a woman. Just by default, we become caretakers, right? We become our parents' caretakers, our tias' caretakers. And so we are very much like conditioned to just try to do everything for everyone. And you really have to pick certain days and moments of the day where you're like, I got to put me first. So I'm going to go have this coffee. I'm going to go have this snack. I'm going to call this person, whatever it is that brings you, relief in the day. You do it. And you just don't beat yourself up. I think that's what and also cry if you have to. I've been known to cry in my car and just let it out. And you know what? I feel better. I get out and I'm like, all right, that was a good cry, Jen. We did good. And that's we're meant to do that for a reason. But I think being vulnerable, saying that you need help, has been something that has been very beneficial for me, I think. And if we could just as a community allow ourselves to say, I need help. How many times do people offer to like do stuff and you're like, no, estoy bien. And you're like, no, you're not good actually. So take the help or ask for help, I think is what I would say.
Thank you. Thank you for such an honest, response. I think we need to hear honesty like that because we say too much. Oh yeah, I got it. No.
Yeah, you don't got it. And that's cool. That's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you, of course.
Well, following your answer, which was very, very interesting because it is so real, as Ms. Cano mentioned. Let me bring now our dear Councilmember Pierina Sanchez. She was with us last time at the Dominican Heritage event that we hosted. And she was so fabulous that I had students emailing me and asking me how to get in contact with her. They relate so much to your presentation and to your position and to the struggles that you have gone through. So go ahead. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Dean García Reyes, and good to see you, President Cocco de Filippis, and everyone on the panel, Maria Evenlyn. I just want to open up by saying one thing about my incredible colleague, Jennifer Gutiérrez. She's probably gonna beat me up later. But there's a reality about being easy on yourself and showing yourself grace and letting yourself go that sometimes we don't know. And that is that people outside cannot always tell. And Jen, you are crushing it. You are killing it. You are on every hearing. You're in every meeting. You are participating. You're asking questions. You're asking incisive questions. And so it's just, for me, it's just kind of fascinating as a sister to hear, to hear you in this honest way, when what I see and what I know that the world is seeing is just this badass mom, brand new mom who is just amazing and incredible. And that's the power. That's the power in being yourself, right? And in knowing that you are putting your full heart into everything that you're doing, and you do that, Councilwoman. So thank you. Thank you for everything that you do. And you're gonna make an amazing human. You made an amazing human, and you're gonna raise an amazing human. So hi, everybody. I am Pierina Sanchez. I am New York City Council member in the 14th District in the Boogie Down Bronx. Yes, I see some hand raises. And, for me, for those of you who weren't there a couple of weeks ago, what is time? Maybe it was a couple of days ago. I'm not really sure. But I shared that I was born and raised here on Kingsbridge and Fordham and Burnside. And, to go through the journey of, being born and raised to immigrant parents, very, very low income, going through displacement, going through eviction, seeing my parents get taken advantage of, but like falling and getting back up, right? Like falling and getting back up, and having that resilience be kind of like part of your DNA, right? Seeing them and having that, be what you go through in school and what you go through in your internship and what you go through in your jobs, because you're probably working part-time because you have to make ends meet and you have to contribute to other parts of your life and your family. That is your strength. That's what you draw on. And so a little bit about my story is that beginning, and then, going in the CUNY system, right? Going to Bronx Community College, I went to a program in high school called Upward Bound program. And it was a college prep program that, took us to college campuses. We went to la Universidad Pontificia de Puerto Rico or something like that. And I was like, dope, this is college? I could go in Puerto Rico and Hawaii, that's great. And just having that support of mentors, of people who look at you and they tell you things that you might not believe about yourself, but that are true, right? Like, you have an incredible wealth of potential and power, and using that support system that I had in high school to get full scholarships to go to college and then grad school, and then work in the White House. I went to Harvard College in Princeton for my master's. And then, got to become an urban planner, and become, somebody who's actually alongside Councilmember Gutiérrez in previous jobs, fighting for housing, affordable housing, fighting for our voices to be heard in all these different spaces. And so, I think my message for us, especially in Women's History Month, is like, tap the well, right? Tapping the well of your power and your resilience is not just, working yourself to the ground. It is that vulnerability. It is that pain, right? Like, feel the pain and remember that, wow, like, there's so many incredible heroes, sheroes that have come before me that have been through this, and they went through the pain, right? And they went through these challenges, and that empowered them to be the strong people that they were, to accomplish what they did. Las Hermanas Mirabal from the Dominican Republic, who stood up against a murderous dictator. Those were 3 women, right? 3 women who were living in repressive times, who were told to sit down, who were told that you shouldn't, speak unless spoken to, and they did, right? And they made the ultimate sacrifice in their family for what they believed in, but it was from fighting from a place of pain, and using that to be your power. So I'm always so happy to come back to CUNY, to come back to Hostos. I've been working with the college in different ways over the years as an urban planner, things like that in the South Bronx. But most of all, live your power, live your truth, and we got this. So y'all gonna finish strong. You're gonna be incredible in school, and it's gonna suck and it's gonna be hard, but you know what? That's just part of life, right? So embrace that and keep on going. And next thing you know, you got some flags behind you. You're like, what? I'm a council. Who? That's crazy. So thank you so much for having us.
That's wonderful. Thank you. You got it. Sí se puede.
Sí se puede. Sí se puede. Yes,
following your presentation, I have a question for you. What do you think about mentoring? Is mentoring important for women to teach each other, to help each other move forward, for students? I mean, tell us, what do you think about mentoring?
I absolutely, it's critical. It's I always say, look for, it might not be someone who looks like you actually, but look for people who you just admire, and you're like, wow, you've accomplished this, you've accomplished that, or you did this particular thing really well, and just talk to them, right? Like, seek them out. And I always try to seek people out and be like, hey, how's school? How's it going? Because mentorship is critical. Mentorship is critical. I'll never forget, Dean Garcia, the day that I met you. I don't know if you remember, but I must have been, some 22 years old or something like that. We were in Washington, D.C. And, we were actually, it was an event called Dominicans on the Hill. And Dominicans on the Hill was the first time that the Dominican diaspora was invited to the White House for a briefing. The White House, as you may know, why would you know? I didn't know this, so I don't know. Maybe you do, but I didn't know this back then. But what the White House does as part of their engagement is that they bring in different groups of different diaspora, different business groups, different interest groups, right? To have a chance to talk to the president, to have a chance to talk to leadership. And it was the first time in history that Dominicans as a group had ever been brought to the White House. And it was by someone that Dean Garcia Reyes also mentored, that I think the president also mentored, see, because we're meeting now, but you never know, like life goes on for a long time. So this person, his name is Elias Alcantara, who was senior in the White House, young Dominican, and arranged this event with President Obama, brought us into the White House. So there was like 200 of us, and I was just like, what? This is crazy. This is so cool. Wear my little suit, you know? And I meet Dean García Reyes, and, you know, she says, it's very good that you're here. And I'll never forget the advice that you gave me. You said, Pierina, you know, break into all the spaces that you can. When you are in these spaces, make sure that you write down the contact information, you write down the phone number, you make sure that they remember you, not just that you remember them, but they remember you. And that, you know, take some pictures and have those memories, because you never know how things will play out over time. Right. And it was a great conversation. And there was a lot more things that we exchanged and that we said, but every single one of those pieces of advice I followed that day. And, you know, it's so interesting because a couple of weeks ago, I found, you know, actually the dean sent me a picture that we had taken that day. And it was like, she practices what she preaches. she took that picture. And so mentorship is critical because, you know, sometimes a single nugget of advice that you get from somebody who has been in it for 10, 20, 30 years more than you have, you know, might be so deep in wisdom that it can help you for years to come.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much. Yes, I remember. There are lots of pictures, and it's important that when we have the opportunity to go into those settings, that people remember us. So we have to be, you know, how can I say it? Very creative in our way of approaching legislators and policymakers so that they remember us, not just us remembering them. I have another follow-up question. And actually it's for both legislators and for the president if she wants to join, and Evenlyn and Ms. Cano. The question is, has it been hard for you to find your own voice in a women's male-dominant environment? Has it been hard throughout the years? Tell me.
I think, yes, I think I'm still finding my voice, right? I think I'm still, I would say the challenge is, and this is again, me being very vulnerable. And I think it's me feeling like I am smart enough to speak about this sometimes, or I am coming with the experience to talk about this. So I think I remember I went to like this seminar once, and they said that anytime a man is asked, like the percentage of a man being asked to run is that his first reaction will be like, great, when do I take my pictures? And the likelihood of women being asked to run there, you know, you got to ask them like 3 or 4 times, because each time they're like, no, well, I can't, I have this, I have the children, I have whatever. And so I am the person that's like, you know, let go of all that baggage, but I am very much still a product of those like social conditions where sometimes I find myself second guessing myself, and I just have to remind myself, like, is this the advice that I would give 16-year-old Jen? No. And so it's like a constant for me every day where it's like, this is my voice and I'm finding it. But once I get going, I get going. And I think one of the really special things about the council this year is that there's so many women, and like Pierina and I have known each other before council, but we're going to be friends during council and after council. And like, once you create those networks, you have each other's back. And that's why it's so important to, like, you know, bring people up with you. I come up, we all come up. And if we're doing that with women of color, like, imagine how secure and how strong our voices will be. So I'm still finding it, but when I get it and I'm in a space like this, you can't stop me. And I think the more we create those spaces, the better we'll be.
The first thing that comes to mind is, I was going to say, you know, when I was in urban planning, I was in a majority white, majority male organization. And when it came to the board of directors, forget it, right? It was super duper majority, right? And, you know, I would go into some spaces and, you know, people would be like, right? Because there's no separating that you're a woman from that you're a woman of color, from that you're Latina, you're all these things at the same time. You're at the intersection of all these things. And I remember, you know, situations where people would be like, wow, you're so well-spoken. I'm like, better yet, why would you say that to a white man? Would you? Would you, right? And absolutely they would not. And just now I'm thinking about those experiences, but they didn't stop. I had at least 2 people in the last week tell me that I'm well-spoken. Like, I am the chair of the New York City Council's Committee on Housing and Buildings. I have 2 degrees. I have worked for 10 years in this field. What do you mean I'm well-spoken? You're not well-spoken. You're saying something so ignorant right now. And it's infuriating. But again, right, to that first point, you remember your power, you remember that anger, you remember the pain, and you have your voice, right? Because your voice comes de aquí abajo, from deep inside, right? Your voice comes from deep inside, and it's informing every step that you do, how you study, how you work, all of these different things. But what happens is that the world comes down and it tries to hold you down, right? And it tells you you don't belong, and you're not good enough, and you're not supposed to be here, right? That's what really happens, right? But you have your voice. It's a matter of being able to let it out, right? But which we're not allowed to do. But I think that coming into the last 10 years, I chose a career in urban planning. It's majority male. It's majority white. And coming into the city council that is majority women of color is such an incredible feeling, because it's this kind of relationship. It's like you're surrounded by many people, not all, right? But many people you're surrounded with have this ethos of, they have been in these situations. They have been treated in these ways. They have been disrespected and micro disrespected, right? Because some of these things are very subtle, right? But if you read between the lines, you're like, you are saying that someone like me is not supposed to be well-spoken. That's what you're saying when you say that sentence, right? And when you come into a majority, woman council, majority people of color council, it's like, creating space for each other. There have been already situations where it's like, I introduce a piece of legislation, somebody else introduced, and we're having a conversation, and we're like, no, you have it. No, you have it. No, but why don't you have it? I can't even imagine that. In the past, it's just a beautiful thing. Of course, there are gonna be their challenges and things like that, but just knowing that you're in a space where there are a lot of people who are there to support you is just a wonderful thing.
Thank you, and congrats. I saw on Facebook that you're having the people's office being open.
Yes, it's this.
That's how she called her new office. The people's office. Very good, very good. President, you want to say something?
Yes, I want to say this. When all this began, probably some of you, for me, were not even born. That doesn't mean I'm being maternalistic, but I am so incredibly proud of all of you and the voices that I hear. In my generation, I'm going to just mention a couple of books where women have dealt with the issue of when do you speak and how do you speak. So the first one was called Man-Made Language. And I think the hardest thing for some men, because I happen to be the sister of 3 wonderful brothers who are still so close to me after all these years and the distance because we're in different places, and a wonderful husband, someone I married when I was a young woman. And like you, Jennifer, I had the kids going to school, and my husband was like a second mother in many ways, taking over when I couldn't. And this is why I got where I am. And basically, what I learned from that first experience is, number one, I went to Connecticut on my own, all by myself, to be the college president. And I was for 12 years, and we did really well. But when I got there, I said to myself, what am I going to do here? My predecessor had been a white male for 23 years, right? Whose style was basically kind man, may he rest in peace now, to close the door and put music on and let it all happen. That's not me. I go into the line of fire and I speak when I have to speak. But I also realize I cannot run this college looking like me. First of all, brown, short, a little heavy, with a little accent, right? And so if I tried to manage like a white man, nobody would believe me. So that hits you very, very hard. So as a faculty, following that book, Man-Made Language, I used to wait when the discussion went, a part of me still does that too. Let it all come out. Sometimes all the garbage, all the fake news, everything else that needs to come out of there. Absolutely. And then understand what, so that's number one, you know, and then you find when you speak and when you figure well, you're going to have such incredible power when you speak that people try to shut you off. Because the one thing that I always tell my students, and I learned that from my lessons in literature from Quixote, is this. There are two words in Spanish, and there's a very good reason for that, for honor. One is honra, that is all the glory we get accolades because we have positions, we have whatever. The other one is honor. And a person who doesn't speak the truth, to me, has no honor. So I always say, folks win when they make me behave like them, which I will never do. I will never do. I will never do. I always tell the truth as with the facts that I have. So I tell my staff, if you give me the wrong facts, there's going to be issues here because this old mind still records every little number that people give me. And I remember at the appropriate time. The second one that we passed around in Connecticut because there were 9 women presidents. And all of a sudden, there was a new supervisor there who was not as keen in having 9 women. So there was a book that, to my incredible surprise, all of the women have read. And then the social workers, my son is a social worker, professor of social work, told me, Mom, we use this book too. It's called Man-Made Language. Now, I'm sorry, Men Explain Things to Me. And it begins with a chapter where the author of a book that had been reviewed in the New York Times is standing outside a party in California. And this man approaches them and talks to and says to the friend, oh, this book, you should see. He begins to give opinions about a book he had not read. He had just read the review. And the woman attempts to tell him, you're speaking to the author of the book. You can ask her all the questions you want because the author of the book is here. And of course, the whole idea was that in the end, he doesn't even hear that and continues to blather. So what you do is be sure, if this is my advice to my students, to all of us, to all the younger women, and I do that a lot, so forgive me, okay? Be sure that in the morning when you get up, you can look in the mirror and know that you're honorable, the real honor, the one that's here, the one that you know that you behave like a fair and a decent human being. Because in the end, relationships are built on trust. And people know with me, if I say yes, it's yes. If I say no, it's because it cannot be, but I always listen. I listen a lot, sometimes to really awful stuff. But I just want to say, it doesn't get easier. It doesn't get easier. I have a lot of experience. Took that walk from an adjunct to a faculty, to a dean, to a provost. And this is my second presidency. And you're always going to have some ugly person make a remark. And you just go like that. You never, ever, like Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. But continue to affirm yourself and don't lose who you are. The fact that you count on your family, the fact that you remember and you honor, the fact that they were poor and that they struggle and that they're helping you even now. Because that's the way it was for me as well. Family around me, always. And in that, so many years, having a career and still be close to a family. Don't ever forget that we inherit as Dominicans. Where community and family really matter. So my beautiful, beautiful, talented women, go get it. Go get it all that you can get. All of you.
Thank you, President. With that, we have come to the end of the program. And I want to give special thanks to these lovely ladies, elected officials who multitask and do all they can to represent their communities, their students, their families, with pride, and they do it so well. We are all very, very proud of you. So thank you to the honorable elected officials who were here before. Amanda Septimo, Assemblywoman Amanda Septimo, Assemblywoman Chantel Jackson. Pierina, you're here. Thank you. Councilwoman Pierina Sanchez, and the Honorable Jennifer Gutiérrez, Councilwoman Gutiérrez. Thank you as well to all the colleagues, faculty, staff, and students who are watching. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be with us. And thank you to Mr. Eric Radesky, my colleague from Governmental Affairs. He's a friend of Jennifer, who brought her to be part of this great program. Thank you to Diana Kramer, the interim chief of staff, to Mr. Victor Santana, who takes care of all the technology to make sure that the program goes on well. Thank you to the Office of Communications, to Maria Cano, my co-host, the director of College Discovery. Maria, thank you so much. To Vice President Evenlyn Fernandez-Ketcham, thank you all. Thank you for being with us. So we'll see you next time. Go get them. Go ahead.
Take care.